In today's world of comfort and convenience, modern humans have gradually lost the ability to understand and live in harmony with nature. Surrounded by concrete, glass, and electricity, we have come to believe that technology can replace every ancient skill. Yet, if a modern person were suddenly thrown into the wilderness, especially into the brutal cold of winter, after 6 hours, their feet would be numb. After 12, they would give up. After 24, they would die, because they lack the practical knowledge needed to live in the icy wilds of North America. The first deadly mistake of modern humans lies in their way of thinking. They see the wilderness as an enemy. When faced with cold winds, they fight them in anger. When encountering obstacles, they take them as insults. Meanwhile, indigenous peoples, the true inhabitants of the frozen lands, have never fought against nature. They merge with it, listen to it, and move in rhythm with the wind, snow, and earth. They do not waste energy resisting, but instead conserve every breath, every motion, to survive in balance. To them, life is not a battle. It is a graceful dance with the world around them. When placed in extreme conditions, modern people tend to lose the most vital thing, their calm. Fear, panic, and impulsive decisions drive them into chaos, running aimlessly, wasting energy in futile actions. Panic kills faster than the cold. In contrast, indigenous peoples act slowly and deliberately. They know that a single careless move can cost a life. What modern humans lack is not tools or strength, but humility and understanding. They were never taught that survival is not about fighting nature, but about accepting and adapting to it. Nature is not something to be conquered, it is something to be respected. Only when humans understand this can they truly begin to live, not as invaders, but as a part of the greater living world. Survival then ceases to be a struggle and becomes an art of harmony, where humanity rediscovers its most primal essence. Entering a world of snow and ice, where every breath can freeze in the air, modern people think they are prepared. Waterproof jackets, insulated boots, high-tech gloves, everything advertised as a shield against nature. Yet after only a few hours in real cold, they realize that expensive fabrics cannot save them from their own ignorance. They believe technology can replace experience, that layers of synthetic clothing can outsmart winter. But nature cannot be deceived. The first mistake lies in misunderstanding how the body interacts with the environment. They wear tight clothes that trap moisture, run and sweat, then let that moisture freeze against their skin. Within minutes, their warm outfit turns into an icy shell draining heat from their body. They do not know that breathability and ventilation matter more than thickness. Indigenous peoples learned this long ago. They wore clothing made from caribou or deer hide, the hollow hairs creating natural insulation. Their garments were loose, allowing air to circulate so the body could breathe with the cold. Modern people also forget that death begins at the feet. Their stylish boots restrict blood flow. Soon, toes grow numb and blue. The indigenous peoples wore soft moccasins, filled with dry grass insoles. A simple yet brilliant way to absorb moisture and keep warmth. When the grass grew damp, they replaced it, keeping their feet dry and alive. Likewise, modern humans underestimate the head and hands, where heat escapes fastest. They wear tight gloves that separate fingers, cutting off circulation. The indigenous peoples used fur-lined mittens, letting warmth from the whole palm flow together. Their fur-trimmed hoods created a calm zone around the face, where warm breath softened the sting of the wind. A fatal modern error is drying wet clothes too close to fire, shrinking and stiffening leather beyond repair. The indigenous peoples were patient. They dried garments slowly with body warmth or gentle air. For them, every piece of clothing was a masterpiece of survival, born from understanding and respect for nature's materials. Ultimately, the greatest lesson is not in materials or design, but in mindset. Clothing is not a wall between man and nature, it is a bridge. Only by understanding how nature works can humans learn to dress not to fight the cold, but to coexist with it. In the heart of winter, when the wind howls and the snow never stops falling, shelter is not just a roof. It is the boundary between life and death. Modern people, when trapped in the wild, often pitch their tents wherever the ground is flat, believing that a tarp and a few aluminum poles are enough to withstand the blizzard. But they forget that nature has its own laws, and a single mistake in choosing a campsite can be fatal. One strong gust, a buildup of heavy wet snow, or a misjudged wind direction, all can turn a modern tent into a freezing trap. In contrast, indigenous peoples understood that a winter dwelling was not merely a refuge, but a structure built from wisdom and experience. They never camped in open spaces. Instead, they chose areas protected by forests or natural hollows to shield against the wind. Their tents, tepees, may seem simple, yet they were masterpieces of engineering. The tilted conical shape was no coincidence. It allowed the wind to glide around without exerting destructive pressure. Inside, 2 layers of animal hides formed an insulating air gap, like a natural thermos, preserving warmth through the long winter nights. At the top of the tepee was a smoke hole, adjustable by 2 wind flaps, allowing the inhabitants to regulate airflow with precision. The fire inside didn't need to be large. Even a small flame could heat the space evenly thanks to clever air circulation. Every detail reflected a deep understanding of aerodynamics and thermodynamics, knowledge born not from books, but from generations of observation and adaptation. Meanwhile, modern humans fight nature with synthetic materials while indigenous peoples live alongside it, turning wind and smoke into allies. They knew that true safety does not lie within thick walls, but within harmony between human and environment. A humble tepee, built with understanding, can be warmer than a concrete house, if its inhabitants know how to listen to the whispers of the wind and respect the laws of the earth. In the white silence of the night, when the wind screeches through the trees and the moon itself seems to shiver from the cold, the fire is the only living heart that still beats in the darkness. Modern people, caught in such a situation, often make a grave mistake. They pile up a mountain of wood, building a massive fire, believing that the bigger the flame, the greater the warmth. The blaze roars for a moment, then the heat vanishes into the wind, leaving them shivering before a heap of ashes. They never learned that fire does not need to be large, it needs to be intelligent. In the frozen wilderness, extravagance means death. Frugality and skill means survival. Indigenous peoples knew this truth well. They never built roaring fires. Instead, they maintained a small flame no bigger than a hand, placed at the center of the tepee. That fire wasn't meant to heat the entire space, but to provide a steady source of warmth, enough for cooking, drying clothes, and maintaining breathable air. Stones were placed around the fire. Once heated, they released gentle warmth through the night. Thus, they slept in quiet comfort, without smoke stinging their eyes or fear of the fire dying out. Modern people, by contrast, often build fires directly on snow, causing the base to melt and the flame to sink into a pool of icy water. They forget that fire needs dry ground, or at least a layer of damp logs as insulation. They also don't realize that choosing wood is an art. Birch bark for kindling, pine for quick heat and light, oak or maple for long-lasting embers. For indigenous peoples, every stick of wood was part of a deliberate plan. Nothing was wasted. Their fire did not blaze across the horizon, but it warmed hearts and kept life invisible yet safe. In the world of ice and silence, the greatest light doesn't come from a towering flame, but from understanding and humility before nature. Only those who master restraint can truly master fire, the fragile yet eternal symbol of life amid the endless winter. In the imagination of modern humans, the winter forest teems with game, deer, rabbits, bears, waiting to be hunted by the strong and brave. But that is a deadly illusion. When snow blankets the land, animals become cautious, hiding deep in the forest, their tracks erased by the wind within minutes. The inexperienced wander for hours through the freezing cold, wasting precious energy, only to return empty-handed and starving. In such a world, the reckless hunter dies long before finding his prey. Indigenous peoples understood that winter is not the season of hunting, but of memory and preparation. They survived on what they had gathered during summer and autumn, the silent months of labor that decided who would live through the snow. Their most precious food was pemmican, a miraculous mixture of dried, powdered meat blended with rendered fat and berries. Small yet powerful, a few bites could fuel long journeys through blizzards. It required no cooking, never spoiled, and carried immense nutritional value. Life condensed into the palm of a hand. They also dried fish, nuts, roots, and forest berries, creating a pantry of natural, nutrient-rich food. During the harshest days, they dug through the snow to find edible roots or set snares for rabbits and squirrels. Methods that required little effort but provided steady sustenance. Modern people would starve not because there is no food, but because they don't know where to look or how to preserve what they find. Indigenous peoples survived because they understood that survival is not about today, but about foresight, discipline, and respect for nature, where every dried berry and every strip of meat carries the wisdom of thousands of years of adaptation. In the frozen world, where every step sinks deep into layers of snow, movement itself becomes a grueling challenge. Modern humans, accustomed to asphalt roads and elevators, believe that effort and strength alone can overcome any terrain. But in an endless sea of snow, every misstep exacts a price: sweat, breath, and precious life energy. After only a few hundred meters, they are exhausted, soaked in sweat, and soon the cold turns that sweat into ice. In such a world, the strongest person is not the fastest, but the one who knows how to move slowly. The indigenous peoples understood this rule perfectly. They did not race against nature. They moved in rhythm with it. On deep snow, they wore snowshoes, wide wooden feet that distributed weight and let them glide over the surface instead of sinking. They knew how to take soft, sliding steps, avoiding heavy stomps, a movement as fluid as the wind. For the untrained, walking on snow is a struggle. For them, it was an ancient dance between human and earth. It was not only about walking, but also about choosing the path. Modern people often move in straight lines, chasing the shortest distance, while the indigenous chose the easiest route, following frozen riverbeds, animal tracks, or paths where snow had been compacted. They avoided steep slopes and dense forests, knowing that an hour on the right path saves a whole day on the wrong one. They managed their body temperature, keeping a slow, steady pace to avoid sweating, because in winter, a drop of sweat is a drop of life lost. To carry supplies, they didn't burden their backs like modern hikers. Instead, they used sleds, gliding smoothly over the snow faster and with far less effort. Every detail reflected thousands of years of observation and adaptation. While modern humans fight against the snow, the indigenous glide upon it. For they understand that in the world of cold, the victor is not the strongest, but the one who moves in harmony with the falling snow. In a world buried under snow, where everything around is frozen water, modern people can still die of thirst. That is the cruel paradox of winter. Water is everywhere, but none of it can be drunk. When their throats grow dry, most modern individuals scoop a handful of snow into their mouths, believing it's the quickest way to quench thirst. But that act is a silent death sentence. As the snow melts, it absorbs heat from the body, lowering core temperature and hastening the onset of hypothermia. In the cold, even a small mistake can kill. The indigenous peoples understood that water in winter is more than a drink. It is the essence of balance and survival. They never ate snow. Instead, they patiently melted it in a pot, always beginning with a small amount of water at the bottom to prevent burning. They knew the process consumed time and fuel, so whenever possible, they chose ice from rivers or lakes, as a single block of ice yields far more water than handfuls of snow. For them, each drop of warm water was a product of experience and patience. They could tell clean water from contaminated ice by sight and intuition. Clear, bluish ice signaled purity. Cloudy white ice filled with bubbles meant impurities and poor melting. They didn't just drink water, they drank life itself. Pine needle tea or berry infusions not only quenched thirst but replenished vitamins, strengthening their bodies against illness. Modern people fail to realize that dehydration is more dangerous than hunger. As the body loses water, blood thickens, circulation slows, and hands and feet grow numb, ushering in frostbite. While they forget to drink, distracted by their struggle with snow and wind, their bodies silently wither. The indigenous peoples, by contrast, knew that to drink water is to feed the fire within the veins, to preserve clarity of mind and strength of spirit. In the endless winter, they did not merely learn how to find water. They learned to revere every drop as a fragment of life itself. When snow blankets the ground and the sky merges with the horizon, every direction loses its meaning. Modern humans, armed with compasses or GPS-enabled phones, quickly lose their way once batteries die and winds erase all traces of the path. In that blinding whiteness, they wander aimlessly, circling in despair, victims of disorientation. But for the indigenous peoples, that land is no maze. It is an open book, and they know how to read every page with their eyes and intuition. They do not need a compass, for the sun, wind, and snow are their loyal guides. They know that the midday sun lies to the south, and the North Star points the way home. Even when clouds obscure the sky, they can orient themselves by observing snowdrifts and wind patterns. The long ridges of snow reveal the direction of the prevailing wind. They study the trees. The northern side of trunks is darker and moss-covered, while the southern side receives more light and spreads longer branches. More importantly, they map the land in their minds, creating a living, three-dimensional memory. Every boulder, river bend, and solitary tree on the tundra becomes a landmark. They do not walk aimlessly, each step is guided by remembrance. Modern people travel by devices. Indigenous peoples travel by memory, instinct, and faith in the land and sky. That is why they are never truly lost, for they are not merely finding a way through the snow, but finding themselves within nature's embrace. In the imagination of modern society, survival is the tale of a lone hero, facing nature's cruelty with unbreakable will and strength. Yet, in the bitter truth of winter, where even breath can freeze, no one alone survives. Their death does not come from cold or hunger, but from isolation, when the soul has nowhere to rest. Indigenous peoples have always known this. For them, winter is not an individual challenge, but a test of the collective. In a winter camp, no one lives alone. Each person is a vital piece of the whole. One tends the fire, another repairs the tent, another cooks or hunts. The survival of the group depends on this rhythm of cooperation. They share not only food and fuel, but also trust and hope. When one falls ill, all care for them. When a child grows cold, many hands reach out to warm them. Within that web of connection lies a profound spiritual strength. Amid long nights and howling winds, the voices and laughter of companions are the fire that warms the soul. Indigenous peoples understand that while the body needs heat, the spirit needs connection. No one eats or sleeps alone, for loneliness in winter is a slow death sentence. Modern humans, by contrast, are enslaved by individualism. They believe strength lies in total independence, that victory is solitary. But in the snowy wilderness, no one conquers the cold with bare hands. Life survives only when it is shared. Indigenous peoples know that survival is the journey of we, not I. And because of that belief, amid the wind and endless night, they are never truly alone. For within them always burns a flame called community.